So for this exercise, I want you to think about maybe 2 or 3 social media channels that you follow and try to think about the channels that you kind of like look forward to seeing their content. This could be scouting related. It could be a scout group that you really like following, an NSO page that you like following, or it could be completely unrelated to scouting. Could be a brand, it could be a celebrity, an influencer, a friend, anybody. So just have somebody in mind, head to Slido. And then Mika, do you want to share your screen now?
Yep.
If you have a question, can you just drop it in the chat, please? Yeah, Mohammed, I see your hand up. Can you drop your question in the chat?
Okay, so are we ready to start the poll?
I think we're ready. Let's go. All right, so first, just thinking about those pages that you follow, drop in some reasons why you like following these pages. It can be absolutely anything. It could be a specific content that you like. It could be about the type of content that they share. It could be about how it makes you feel. Okay, so it seems like a lot of it is about information, getting the information that you need, staying up to date on things, entertainment, funny, interesting. Again, more about content and news, learning new things. So education is part of it. A couple of people mentioned video as a form of content that they like to consume. All right, super. Keeping all of that in mind, we'll move on to the next one. I see we're only 20 people here, so please, if you haven't joined us on Slido, we have a couple more questions. You can still join us because there's more than 60 people on the call. Okay, now thinking about how you engage with posts on social media, because as the people who are creating content, we expect people to engage with it, but how do you engage? So when it comes to liking a post, what makes you stop and like a post? Because of course we're scrolling a lot. We don't like every single post we come by. Why would you like a post versus not another one? Nothing? All right, shall we? Oh, there we go. All right, good photos. Yeah, so the quality of the content then, if we're saying good photos, that'll make you stop and like something, the actual content that it is. Wow, so many answers. There we go. Lovely. Thank you. All right, to support somebody, that's a nice one. When it's an organization that I like, I definitely want to make sure that I give them a little bit of a boost, whether that's a like or a comment, something that's eye-catching, a great headline, good show of diversity and inclusion, aesthetics, humor. I know humor is a big one for me as well. Knowledge. Okay, lovely. Okay, quickly we'll move on to the next one. We have 2 more, so we're just going to think about the different types of engagement. So that's what makes you stop and like a post. Now what makes you stop and comment on a post? This is a less common form of engagement. Definitely a lot less people comment on posts versus like posts. Yeah, so something that's relatable will definitely make more people stop and want to say something about how it impacts them or why they also feel the same way. Sharing an opinion, that's huge. That's why it's a great call to action to ask people about their opinion on something. Because a call to action has asked you to do it, that's definitely possible. If there's a question that you want to answer, okay, awesome. Show some love, show some support. That's really lovely. Okay, next one. And last one, what makes you share a post with somebody else? So that could be like sharing something that you saw in your stories on Instagram, or it could be sharing a post you saw on Facebook, or it could be sending it privately to somebody. Okay, so yes, I think that there's two main reasons why people tend to share posts. The first one is because it's something that's useful information and they think somebody else will want to have that information, or because it's funny. I think these are two of the main reasons that people share things. I know for me, it's almost always because I think something's funny or relatable, so I want to share it. I think these are all important things to keep in mind. If we can remind ourselves of why we engage in certain ways, it will help us create content that makes other people want to engage. Make sense? All right, so that's just to get us thinking in a different way, and we'll take this kind of spirit and information into the rest of the workshop. All right, hope that your translations are all good now. Okay, I'll share my screen again, and we'll come back to the presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a few questions with you, basically. 5 questions. I know it looks like a lot to deal with in the next 45 minutes, but we'll just go kind of top level. The first is, why use social media? Second is, where should you focus your attention? Because there's so much that you can do. Number 3 is, what content should we deliver? 4, how can busy people create content? And I think this is probably the most important one for all of us here. And 5, what tools can help us? So why use social media? I know that this seems super basic, like we might not even want to talk about this, but I think it's good to remind ourselves of just how important this is. Like, it can get a little bit lost among the traditional media. So, it's good to see what organic content on social media looks like and why it matters. So first stat for you today, 3.78 billion people use social media. That's almost half of the world's population. And we've never had anything like this in our lives before. So it's completely transformed the media landscape. And for that reason, we definitely need to be there because that's where people are. Our audience is there. So it gives us an opportunity to do quite a few things, including building our community. We have communities in Scout groups, and we have an opportunity to take either that community and bring it online in the off time when we're not together in person, but also to expand that community beyond one Scout group to many Scout groups, or even globally. We have the opportunity to establish our brand and our leadership, so that more like our authority as a leading organization in youth advocacy and in education. We have the opportunity to retain and motivate our members using social media. I know for us that it's such a big deal for Scouts when we share things that they're doing on our pages, when we share their photos, their stories, and it's a great way to motivate them and at the same time inspire other Scouts. It's also a really important opportunity to grow our membership because we can reach parents and potential Scouts, people who may want to join Scouting within your own NSOs. So for us, it's a bit more far removed, but for NSOs, you have such a great opportunity to reach those potential Scouts and parents of Scouts. It's also a fun way to discover what's happening, things that you might not have heard about, which again, with traditional media, we didn't really have this opportunity because people weren't able to share their stories, but now everybody can share their stories. So we get to discover and see what else is happening. And finally, to monitor sentiment. So a lot of the time, if something is wrong, if there's a bad news story or anything like that, the first place you'll hear about it is on social media. All right, we're gonna do a little trivia here, and I'll just get you to answer in the chat. So we're gonna go over some of the different social media channels, but instead of telling you what they are, I'm gonna give you hints about what they are, and we'll learn a little bit about them. So the first hint is this channel has 91 monthly active users. So monthly active user means that this many people log on and use this platform every month. I know that's hard. It's a hard hint to start with. A better hint is 600 million daily active users use its Chinese counterpart. And finally, the 69% of their users are between the ages of 16 and 24. So it's a Gen Z dominated platform. Yeah, you got it. It's TikTok. So TikTok conquers, this stat is from the US, but it also applies to, I think, most of the world. 62% of US TikTok users are aged between the ages of 10 and 29. All right, next one. Monthly active users, 1 billion. So a lot more. It's more diverse and larger in its audience than TikTok is. And it is the birthplace of influencers. Yeah, I think the influencers piece gives it away a little bit. It's Instagram. And again, a really important channel. I'd say these are probably the two that are most dominated by young people. With 1 billion users on the app, 71% of them are under the age of 35. All right, next one. Can't guess until the hints are out. 2.3 billion monthly active users. It's technically the second largest search engine in the world, after Google, of course. And more than 1 billion hours of video are watched on this platform every day. Yeah, you got it, YouTube. So YouTube is the second most popular social media platform. Almost 80% of people who use the internet say that they have a YouTube account, which is huge. All right, I'll do a couple more. You can probably guess now because we've already eliminated some of the major ones. All right, so this one has 300 million monthly active users. 63% of users are between the ages of 35 and 65. And it's especially popular for bite-sized news. Yeah, a little trickier, this one. It's Twitter. Yeah, so Twitter definitely has an older demographic. It's also interesting to note that a huge proportion of Twitter users are based in the US compared to other social media channels, so a little bit less diverse regionally speaking, but nonetheless very important. All right, one more. 2.8 billion monthly active users. It has the most active users of any social media platform. And 65% of users are under the age of 35, millennials and Gen Z. Yes, of course, it's Facebook. Yeah, we couldn't go without mentioning Facebook. It is still considered the king of social media. It's still the leading social media platform, despite how quickly Instagram and other channels have been growing. So it does reach 60% of all social media users. All right, hope you had some fun with that and got, again, thinking about the different channels and how we use them. Now let's get more specific and talk about how NSOs can use social media. Sorry, I have a foster puppy here and she's causing trouble in the background. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is where NSOs should focus their energy. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I know that there is so much to consider, especially with all the channels we just looked at and how people are in different places, different types of social media platforms. They like consuming content in different ways. And you can't do it all. It's just impossible. You know, even myself, my full-time job working for WOSM is in social media. And even for me, you know, it's too much. I can't deal with every single social media channel, especially with the size of our audiences. So it's really important that we kind of focus. So I think that this short video does a good job of explaining why that's important. Basically, yeah, so basically the idea is if we try to do everything, then we won't do really well at any one thing because we're splitting our time and resources way too much. But if we instead choose to focus on one channel and have 2 or 3 supporting channels, that's a lot easier for us. In my opinion, the best channel for NSOs is absolutely going to be a Facebook page or an Instagram page or both. But it might vary, it might be a bit different in your country. The social media landscape does vary from one place to another. And depending on what your goals are exactly, if you have more sort of corporate goals, then LinkedIn And Twitter could also be very important for you. TikTok, if you're trying to reach younger people, some NSOs are having fun with that as well. So basically don't try to do it all. Pick 1 or 2 channels to focus on. That's my advice to you. All right, sorry, not working. There we go. So just to show you, some different examples of why we might use different channels at different points. So for us, we do have a Facebook group for the Earth Tribe because it's a bit more of a niche. We chose to have its own space there, which is like, it also gives it a sense of, I think, belonging in that case, because people have to request to join and that they feel like they've sort of become members of the Earth Tribe through this community. It's a place where they can post and it's a bit more two-way. And then we also use Instagram and Instagram stories as ways to be more interactive with our users. But it's really case-by-case basis. And if ever you have questions about which channels you don't know which channels your NSO should use, you can always reach out to me and I can help you decipher that a little bit. But one thing that I think we all need to take into account when we are choosing our channels is knowing who you want to reach. And one of the issues that we often have in scouting, I find, is this last piece here, is that thinking that we can do everything for everyone at all times. And it's very challenging. If we're trying to do that, it's going to change the way that we message things. So is your main goal to reach scouts, to reach parents of scouts, to reach scout leaders and volunteers, to reach potential scouts or potential scout leaders? Of course, like all of these people can be among your audiences on social media, and that is fine. But you do need to make your messaging to face who you think your main target demographic is or who your existing demographic is. So in many cases, that will be scouts. In some cases, you might target more towards parents of scouts or potential volunteers and things like that. So based on you want to base your content strategy basically on your audience research. And I made this little diagram to show you the sweet spot, which is thinking about who your audience is and what they want to see, knowing what you want to talk about, and then finding that sweet spot in the middle, which is what you're actually going to post online. Any questions on that so far? That's all I'm going to say about audience. There's lots more. We could do a whole workshop just on audiences, but I want to get on to content. So. All right, I just made this another little graph for you to show you some ideas of how you could spend your time. So ideally, you can spend more than an hour a week. But if you could do this, for example, 3 or 4 times in a week, where you spend 1 hour focused on social media, this is an idea of how you could divide your time in that 1 hour. So if you took half of that, 30 minutes, to create and schedule content, if you took 15 minutes to engage with other people's content, that can include your own content, like responding to people who commented. It could be engaging with scout groups that are members of your NSO. It could be commenting and liking or sharing content from partners that you work with, like WWF or UNEP, depending on your NSO. Or you can also look at hashtags. Like a lot of NSOs, you have specific hashtags like Scouts Canada, for example, or, I don't know all the different ones in different languages, but you know what yours are. You can search those hashtags and engage with them. The one we usually use is simply #Scouts. So that's the engagement piece. And then if you can just take 5 minutes a couple times a week to publish stories, that's another great way to engage and hear from the scouts. And then finally, 5 minutes to reply to some direct messages. So of course, it's not a perfect world, but I'm just saying, if you can only take an hour a week and do this, you'll be better off than if you're not doing it at all. All right, and the question that we usually get from people who are still like learning about social media, or even people who are doing it a lot, is, but what about the algorithm? And we all have this feeling like the algorithm is working against us. But the reality is that it's not about beating the algorithm. It's about serving your community with content that they find valuable. What is an algorithm? It's machine learning. So basically, the machine, which is say Instagram in this case, is learning based off what users want and what they are trying to get more of. So if users really engage a lot with video or with reels or with stories, whatever they might choose, then the platform wants to give them more of that. So it's not that the algorithm is working against you, it's actually that you need to play into it just a little bit by serving content that's really valuable and good. For the same reasons that you all pointed out, why do you like posts? Why do you share posts? Why do you comment on them? And for those same reasons, we need to make our content just as valuable. So, we talked about in the description of this workshop, we did talk about how to grow our social media channels, but it's not just about gaining followers, it's really about building a community. And when we think about the algorithm and how complex it seems sometimes, I think that a great way to look at it is, in the words of World Scouting Ambassador Bear Grylls, what to do instead of blaming the algorithm: improvise, adapt, overcome. So if what you're doing is not working, change it. It's not a big deal. We can always experiment. We don't have to panic too. If we try something different and it doesn't work, then that's it. It doesn't work. And we can revisit the strategy later on. Any questions about that piece before we go to the next question? No. All right. Great. So in terms of content, what should we actually be delivering on social media? For this, I'm not going to tell you exactly what I think you should be posting about or what type of content you should post. Rather, I want to give you a few things to think about. I really like this model here, which gives you some ideas of what users are looking for when they're online. And there's 6 different sections here. So one is discovering things. Can I find something that interests me? That's usually why we first, log on to Instagram. And that's why we keep opening it again, because we're hoping we're going to see something else that makes us laugh or that we find relatable or learn from. Below that, am I interested in the content that this company posts? So for us, of course, not a company, but are people interested in what you're posting? If not, we can revisit what we're sharing. Can this organization help me solve a problem? That's what a lot of interest comes down to. And we're more interested in content when we realize that they can help us resolve something. And then going to the right side, the research section. What is this? How does it work for me? How could I use it? Purchase, how can I buy it? For us, we were thinking about membership. So is that how can I get my kid enrolled in scouting? This would be probably the most common conversion question for us. And then finally, promoting, how can I share my experience with others? So giving people content that they can share. All right, I also love this quote on marketing. So deliver to the world what you would buy if you were on the other end. I think this is a great way to think about content. Is that something I would click on? Is it something I would share? Is it something I would post myself? If so, it's a really good sign, but you can't only think about yourself. You need to think about your audience. And so if you're an older person, for example, and you're trying to share things that young people are going to find interesting, then definitely connect with the younger people in your organization and ask them for their input, their feedback, and even their volunteer. They might be interested to volunteer and actually help you with content creation. So what might that look like in scouting in terms of delivering something that we hope other people would want to buy into? I'll show some examples from our channels, but you can also feel free to share your ideas on this. So this post here is more of a direct sell type of post than what we normally do. But this is the type of post that I try to do once a month or even a bit less frequently, where it's really directly telling people what we do at World Scouting. So for you, of course, adapt what I'm sharing with you to your NSO. But some scouts that are in your NSO certainly don't know what an NSO is or what an NSO does. So how can you kind of explain to them what your role is and use that opportunity as well to share the fact that you are one NSO among 171 of them, which is a great opportunity because scouts absolutely love learning that they're part of something global. They don't always realize that, and it's really exciting for them when they do realize that and they can find those connections. And we see scouts follow channels for scout groups that are in different countries. And it's such a nice way to sort of build some peace and understanding among different countries. And that's all what we're about at World Scouting. So, so something like this can be a great thing for you to integrate once in a while with a photo that's has some very nice scout vibes in this case with the hats. That's a really easy sell for us when we have this type of visual on social media. Another example to show you something which is a bit more about an event. So in this case, it was about Earth Hour. So for us, when we are posting, and I'm showing you sorry, I should have said I'm showing you examples from Instagram. We do use Facebook as well, but I'll just share examples from Instagram today, and I can answer any questions about Facebook. On Instagram, you have the option to share more than one photo at a time, but the first photo people will see is the top one. For us, we almost never use a poster for that top photo because they tend to look like ads or like you're trying to sell something, and people just don't engage with them as much. So instead, what we started doing is we'll use a really nice scout photo on the top. So in this case, we're talking about Earth Hours. We use this really nice photo of scouts in Indonesia, and they're clearly in touch with nature and connected with the environment. So we use this photo, and the next photo was the Earth Hour poster with all the details. And also all the information in the call to action is in the caption here. Download the Scouts Action Kit. It tells them where they can get it and who they can follow to learn more about Earth Hour. Another really nice and easy sell for us is whenever we show families scouting together, which I think is also just about the values of scouting and the idea of friendship, of doing something together as a family. So if you have nice photos of family scouting from your membership, it's definitely a really, really nice way to connect with people. And I think this is my last example for this section, but also anything that shows like Scout branding, Scout gear. People love to see how scouting is represented in different parts of the world, in our case. But for you, that could be promoting your NSOs shop if you have one, or the World Scout shop if you don't have one. And people love to see, yeah, like in this case, this is not even our gear, but we just thought it was a nice photo and we shared it. And all sorts of people were kind of telling us about their favorite scout clothes. They were saying like they're always afraid to wear their scout clothes because they value them so much and they love them so much. So finding these little ways to connect with people and little calls to action. So in this case, we asked people what their favorite scout swag was. So is it your hoodie? Is it a uniform? Is it a t-shirt, scarf, or a badge? All right, so that's the example section. And now just to talk a little bit about variety in your social media. This is a big challenge as well, because again, we don't always have time to do everything, but it is important to try to think about varying the format. So that could be like whether you're doing on Instagram, that could be videos, or it could be photos, it could be multiple photos or single photo, stories, reels, live sessions. You don't have to do it all, but do try to vary it a little bit because different types of content will reach different people. The algorithm will work differently for different people, right? If I'm always watching Instagram reels, like the short form videos, it's going to serve me more of that because it knows I like it. But if I'm a person who engages a lot with photos, it'll serve me more of that. So it's to your benefit to actually share a variety of types of content. Live sessions are also really good because it's the only way that you can actually push a notification to every single person who's currently online on your channel. So we did our first Instagram live last week for Safe from Harm Week, and we have a really big channel, of course, but we immediately had like 300 people join. They were just the people who were online at that time and saw the notification. So even if you have a smaller group and if you're like live is to 5 people, that's still 5 people who you have their full attention of for the next few minutes. And it's a really good opportunity. So yeah, considering things like short form video, stories, live, photos. Sorry, somebody was not muted. And also like engaging content like quizzes. Like we all know that Scouts really like quizzes. It's a really fun one. And then also variety in what you're showing. So for example, if you're showing like only community service projects, beautiful. We love community service projects, but can we vary it? Can we also show what else Scouts do? Show them having fun, show them outdoors, because really the images that we show are how we show the Scout brand. I personally don't think you need to use any logos when it comes to your social media, or at least on Instagram, because the brand is already there in the actual photo itself. People are wearing their Scout scarves, they're outside, they're at a campfire, they're doing certain activities. That all of that together really shows what the brand is. And it's a way to sell it without looking like you're trying to sell it. All right. Other things to consider besides Scouts having fun, service projects, things like tutorials and DIY are a really great way to get the attention of people who are not necessarily part of your network already, or who are not even scouts, but you're sharing something that they might be interested in. So that's something to consider. And then just fun stuff like a tour of your campsite or whatever it might be, inviting scouts to participate and help your NSO come up with that type of content is really fun. As well as testimonials. It's something I saw Scouts South Africa doing a lot of recently, and you got some really nice quotes from scouts about what they love about it, and also from volunteers. All right, last thing on the content bit, the call to action. So do not forget to include a call to action every single time you have a post. I was looking a lot at different NSO social media pages this week in order to prepare for this session. And I'll say that there are quite a few who are posting frequently, but only a photo with no caption. And the photos are usually really, really nice. So that's great. And sometimes you do get a lot of engagement, even with only a photo. However, you're missing such a great opportunity to pass a message at the same time as you share that photo. So please always include a caption, even if it's short. Although I did just learn that longer captions do tend to get more engagement. So if you have something to say it. And include a call to action. So I put some fun ideas here that you can use. We'll share the PowerPoint with you after. So if you want to like copy some of these, feel free. And just to give you an example of one we did recently that did very well. Name one thing you definitely don't want to forget to pack for camping. We'll go first. Mosquito repellent. We had this great photo from a scout in Poland. It does look a little bit like an ad for the mosquito repellent, but we thought it was a really nice photo. And it did amazing. We had over 200 comments on this post. We engaged with it a lot. We replied to people to give our feedback on what they were saying. And this is something that I think that we're going to be able to use again in the future. So I'm going to talk soon about how to repurpose content, and I'll come back to this example. All right, this is the bread and butter. This is really what you're here for. It's to know what are some tips and tricks to help busy people like all of you create content. I know that in many cases you're a volunteer. Thank you for your service, and thank you for joining us today to do this, because I know some of you are here during your workday or taking your lunch break for this. And I know that it's really, really hard for volunteers to maintain social media presence. And so I want to give you a few ideas of ways, 3 ideas of ways that you can create content more quickly. The first one is using user-generated content. This has been a gold mine for us at World Scouting in the last year, especially. We had to get more creative because we have a photographer and a videographer, and we have volunteers who do that as well, but with no in-person events, there was nowhere for them to go and actually take photos. So we got more creative in terms of what we were doing in terms of outreach on Instagram. And we were always doing this photo of the week every Friday, but basically now we're featuring Scouts photos almost all the time. This has been really nice for a couple of reasons. It's made our Instagram page different from our Facebook page. So our Facebook page is more newsy. Our Instagram page is a bit more fun and light. And it features Scouts from all over, from countries that our videographers or photographers could have never made it to. So it's been really fun. And we call this user-generated content, or UGC for short. And it's a great way. It's like showing the proof of scouting and what scouting is like from our members themselves. So with their permission, we get content from Scouts sharing photos, videos, testimonials, ideas, and feedback. So testimonials, ideas, and feedback are things that we can collect through Instagram stories using the sticker with the question box. As well as sometimes we just get direct messages from people with saying really nice things about scouting, and we will ask them, oh, do you mind if we use this? Can we credit you or use your first name? And their own, in our case, they are always happy to do that. So I'm sure that you'll have a lot of success as well with this method. For photos and videos, we seek them out a little bit more. I'll get to that in the next slide. But the reason I love user-generated content so much is because it's also a form of social proof. So we're doing a few things at the same time. When I'm searching the hashtag Scouts and I'm looking for content that people are sharing, I get to do social listening at the same time, which means it's giving me an idea if there's any problems, if there's something that a lot of people are talking about. I can get a little bit of an ear to that ahead of time. And it's also social proof. It's the best and most influential way to look at what consumer behavior is like today. So it's showing us what do people actually think about scouting. And it's the most successful form of marketing in terms of we could post about scouting and how great we think it is all day, but it's going to be much more impactful coming from the mouth of a scout or a scout leader or a volunteer who has something amazing to say about their experience. So show me the proof. We need evidence. And we do that using UGC. I'm not going to run through all this. The reason I put so many words here is because I want this to be useful to you when I share it afterwards. So you can come back to this, or you could share this sort of method or strategy with your group. So yes, we will be sharing this PowerPoint tomorrow after the presentation. So basically the method that I use for this is to discover and engage and save posts that we like. So I think I put a video here, yes. So this is, if you're not familiar with the fact that you can save posts, this is in the World Scouting account. So at the bottom right of every post, there's this little bookmark. And if you click on that, you can save posts to different collections. So as you can see, we have several collections. Like I collect posts that I might want to share in our stories. I collect ones that we might want to share in general. And then once I have a good collection, I will reach out to a handful of people at once. I'll just do this in bulk on direct message and say exactly this message here. I put it here so you could copy, paste, translate it. You know, hello, we love your photo. Can we please let us know if we have permission to share it on social media? And at the same time, I ask them if we can use it for other promotions and in other promotions such as publications. In the case where there are very young people in it or several people in it, so for example, this photo, I would ask them to check with the entire group that they have permission. There are a lot of ethical issues, of course, online with, you know, choosing to share things that you don't have permission to share. So as scouts, I think we're best to really play it safe and make sure that we have permission from everyone before we do share. And if it's really young people, to make sure that you ask if the parents have consented to sharing this. Good. So I see lots of questions about sharing material. Just know that we will share everything in the network afterwards. All right. So besides that, keeping your content organized and making sure that you save every piece of content that you have with the appropriate credit. So I'm showing you my method. This is not a public board, but just so you can see what we use internally in our team. Every time I get permission to share something, I'll add it to this Trello board, and I'll show you Trello in a minute if you're not familiar with it. And then I just mark it. I include if we're allowed to add it to our media bank. I include a note inside of each of these cards that says that they have given permission, or copy paste the permission there. I include the country and the credit, so the handle that we credit in that case. Once I use something, I have so much content here that once I use something, I drag it over to the other side and say that we've already used it so that we don't get too mixed up. And if you're wondering why we have a whole column dedicated to pets, that would be because of our April Fool's post. I don't know if any of you, I don't know if you all saw it, but we had an April Fool's post about starting animal patrols and having animals join scouting, which was very popular. And a lot of scouts ended up sending us photos of their pets wearing their scout scarves. So we have this nice collection of fun photos as well. All right. And then, sorry, just ignore the text there. I just want to show you some examples of social proof. So these are posts that are not posted by us, that other people have posted, and they do a way better job than we ever could of describing what scouting is like for them. You know, what we do for the kids, very cute photo. It's fun, shows scouting as something that's fun, something that they're proud of, like a parent posting a photo of their kid and how proud they are of them being in scouting. That's a great way to show, you know, that parent posted this, and of course most of their followers are going to be other parents. It's a great way to encourage other parents to join scouting. Every adventure starts with a yes. Bear Grylls, of course, being the World Scouting Ambassador, he often, without us even having to ask, he often will post photos where he has the World Scouting badge on. And then in stories, we use this to collect information all the time, whether that's through quizzes or, like I said, through the question boxes. We had we do fun ones where we'll share responses, like what's the most Scout appropriate gift you ever gave or received? A bunch of a bunch of firewood, no joke. Scout Founders Day, of course, is always a huge one for us. Sorry. All right. Okay, so that was it for user-generated content. Now we'll talk about the next trick, which is repurposing content. So I want you to consider how many different ways you could reuse a blog post. We did this blog post at the beginning or early on when COVID-19 first started about ways that you could help your community in uncertain times. And we listed out these 7 different ways that you could help. So what you see in the graphic on the right side. And from that blog post, we were able to create this graphic. And then this graphic we were able to use in social media posts. So a blog post on scout.org could become, in this case, a shareable graphic, an Instagram story, and we could include it in an email newsletter segment. And I'm sure you could think of other ways that we can use this. But that's just to say that when you do think about one piece of content, you don't have to think about it alone. Like every blog piece you're writing, every newsletter you're writing, there are pieces that you can take from that and sort of dissect it and make it into multiple social media posts. All right, another example. How could you turn a YouTube video of a Scout service project into other types of content? So if you think about traditional media, we have things like webinars, well, sort of modern traditional media, non-social media, webinars, blog posts, podcasts, newsletters, news articles, trade publications. So all of these things, all of these things can either be turned into social media content or vice versa. And then on the other side for social media, you can think about Facebook posts, think about all the different types of content you can do on Instagram, like IGTV, Instagram Reels, stories, captions. On Twitter, you can do a tweet or a thread of tweets. And on LinkedIn, a post there if it's something that's more corporate facing and appropriate there. And again, to show you one more trick for repurposing content, the other thing to think about is if it's something that's sort of evergreen. For example, the post I showed you earlier where we explained what World Scouting does, that's something we would consider evergreen. We don't only have to post that once, we could actually share that exact same post the following month or the month after that. And that is completely okay because it's probably going to get served to different people among your audience. Or if it was a popular post, then people don't mind seeing it again, especially if you use a different visual. So consider ways that you can reshare content that you've already shared in the past. On Instagram, you actually have a way in your insights to see exactly what has performed really well. So I'll just show you here when you click on insights and then you click on content you shared. And then my Wi-Fi was slow. And then it'll show you which posts that you've had, and you can select at the top different things like the types of posts or the date range, like in the last week or in the last year. And it'll show you, I suggest looking by reach. So which posts had the greatest reach. And within the next 3 months, you can reuse that content again, and it'll probably still perform very well. Of course, make sure it's still relevant. If it was about an event, it's no longer relevant, then you'll have to change it to talk about it in past tense or that sort of thing. But lots of opportunities there. All right, and the last one is about using WOSM assets. So if you are not already familiar, and I know we do have quite a few new members with us today, we do have Trello boards for dedicated to you, to NSOs and other WOSM volunteers in order to help you come up with social media ideas, captions, and visuals, which are of course related to World Scouting or Scouting in general. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second and I will share my browser instead. And I'll just show you these live and explain to you how to use them in case you're not familiar. It'll just take a moment. Are there any questions meanwhile? All right. I must be explaining things very well. There's no questions. All right. So, and Nico will share the link to these in case you don't already have them in the chat. But we have two boards. So the first one I'll show you is our 2021 calendar. This is an external facing calendar, so we don't include internal events, webinars, that sort of thing here. And if you click on board at the left-hand side, you'll see that there's actually a calendar option. So what I suggest doing is at the end of each month, come here and have a look to see what's coming up in the following month. So right now, if we look forward to June, we'll see World Environment Day and 1 year of Earth Tribe. If Earth Tribe has been implemented in your NSO, this is a great opportunity for you to promote that again and get excited, get everyone excited about 1 year of its implementation. And we include a number of other ones. So I haven't done June's yet, so I'll just go back for a second. But for example, Eid, we do include some holidays here. We included an example of a greeting that you could post and a graphic that you could share. You're welcome to use any of the content that is on here. International Day of Families is actually the post I showed you earlier. So all you have to do is come in here. You can copy paste and then adapt the post to your own situation. Of course, a lot of the time the photos won't apply to you because we're only sharing photos from a limited number of countries. So you'll have to find photos from your own NSO sometimes, unless they're from World Scout events. But if the photo or graphic worked for you, all you would have to do is click on it. It would open, and then you would have the option to just right-click it in order to save it and use it. Often I'll provide captions for different platforms as well. And we will sometimes have them in different languages as much as we can. Unfortunately, we can't do it for every single piece. So that is that's the calendar. And then I'll just show you the other one, which is our evergreen content board. So again, evergreen meaning this is content that is always relevant, whether it's today, tomorrow, 6 months from now, in most cases. So this is actually becoming quite big. And as you'll see, if you keep scrolling, we're very ambitious with how much content we'll eventually have here for you. But to show you what's there now, in the first column here, we have content we love. So this is actually linking to different boards about specific events. So that could be, sorry, not necessarily events, but it could be campaigns or partner assets. Like WWF has great assets related to the environment. So if ever you want to post things related to the environment and you don't have time, you can come here and take some of their assets. They're really happy for our scouts to use them. So you can look through any of these. We have some suggested scout stories that you can share that might inspire people. Fun opportunities for scouts. So things like promoting the scouts call to action for videos for our new TikTok channel that we're planning to launch soon. We have a section dedicated to scouting at home right now, and I did just add the returning to in-person activities piece at the top here. So hopefully you can have a look at that, or maybe to open that to give you an example. So here you would have the caption, which you could copy and paste, and then you would click on the photo if you want to use that one to save it and post it to your channels. We have a number that are about World Scouting in general or scouting in general. So these are just titles. Remember, to get the full caption, you just click on any post and you'll find a fuller caption there. And in some cases, we included a number of different visual types. If you missed it, we did have a Safe from Harm campaign last week, but this is all also evergreen content. So even if you did participate in it, you could use this content again and again in the future. You know, 2 or 3 months from now, you could repost the same things if it did well, or it's a message that you really think is important. And I think that's actually an important reminder I forgot to say, which is that sometimes it's not about getting it to perform, you know, the best. It's like, if this is an important message, then we will share it regardless, but we'll try to find ways to share it that people are more likely to listen. So the other ones we have are the Scoutship, so tools for Scout leaders, the Scout donation platform, ideas for membership and recruitment. We definitely want to grow that one in the next while. Diversity inclusion has a few, as well as dialogue for peace. Good. Any questions on that? All right. Oh, good. Good to see some people have been using it and finding it helpful. And I've seen, I think actually, yeah, Natasha, I think that some of the NSOs have done a great job of, using it and adapting it. And that's what's really important is you can copy paste it. And I am trying to make it as easy as possible for you to use this material, but you do have to adapt it to your local situation. So do make sure that you're reading carefully, you're, fixing any tags that you need to fix or anything like that. So it's not just a copy paste, it's copy, adapt, and paste to your channel. Good. All right. The last thing I'll share with you are some tools and resources that you can refer to beyond that. And then if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to stay another 15 minutes to help with any questions. Okay, so I will share all of this with you. Sorry, one second, I lost my PowerPoint. Okay, what tools exist to help us? So in terms of publishing, we're lucky because we do have like a third-party software that we use to help us track all the content, but that's also because we're managing like 60 channels or something like this overall when we look at regions and everything else. But there are a lot of free tools available, so I want to share that with you. And if your NSO has a small budget, there's also like upgraded paid versions of things that you can use that are very inexpensive. So Facebook Business Suite or Facebook Creator Studio, whichever one you have access to, when you go on your Facebook page, you'll see there are linked now between Facebook and Instagram. So even if it's on Facebook, you'll actually see at the top that there will be a little Instagram logo, and you can also use it to check your insights on Instagram and to publish things ahead of time. So you can schedule content there, which is amazing. You can even schedule stories now from there. So really, really, really useful tool. I highly suggest bulk publishing, like meaning that you take, 2 or 3 hours one day, even one day a month if you want to just take 3 hours and just go and look at the following month and see how many things can I schedule in the next 2 or 3 hours. That could be a great way to get so much done in terms of content and just scheduling it all out ahead of time. You can use some of the strategies I just gave you. You can develop some of the content that you have coming that's specific to you locally. If you're looking for something where you can also schedule to Twitter and LinkedIn, Buffer does have a free account option if you're only like publishing a handful of posts. I think it's like 10 posts a month or something. That can still be useful, or the membership is quite inexpensive as well. For graphic design, we have Canva, and as many of you know, you're able to request from us to join our Canva team, which will give you access to some of our templates. Not everything we make is on Canva at all, because we do use a lot of we have a graphic designer, so we use Adobe a lot. But when we do templates, it's usually for like Instagram stories and things like that. The purpose of using our templates, and I need to emphasize this as well for the Trello boards I just showed you, is not to change the designs. We do ask that you don't change the designs. It's so that you can translate posts to your local languages. And then a couple other quick suggestions. If you're looking for something to help with video editing on mobile, InShot is great. Photo edits, Photopea, and then hashtag research. There's a couple of websites you can use here. All right, I won't run through any more examples, but I will just remind you before we finish that safe from harm does apply online. So please make sure that you are taking that into account, that you can share the safe from harm content we have on social media to help remind scouts and scout leaders of the importance of safe from harm online as well. And do your best to create safe spaces by monitoring your comment sections and making sure that nothing that does not align with our scout values shows up there. All right, we got another suggestion here for a CapCut for video editing. That's great. The social media free tools will all linked here, so you'll be able to find them here once I share the PowerPoint. All right, last reminders before I hand it over to you. Remember, building an engaged community takes time. You need to keep building it though, even if it's like a little bit hard at first and you might feel like people are not listening or engaging. You need to keep offering valuable content. You need to keep experimenting and building those conversations. In time, engagement will grow if you're consistent. All right. I do have time for questions. I know some of you probably have to log off now. Completely understand that. I'll stop sharing. And if anyone has questions, I'm happy to take them now. Or Mika, if there were questions I missed in the...
Yeah, we can start from the very beginning. So Sharif was the first one to ask, just to clarify, if there is still no way to favorite a specific Trello board for pushing notifications.
No, there is no way to, well, as far as I know, there's no way to get notifications when something changes on Trello. However, you can turn on notifications for the Global Comms Network group, and I do post there every time I add something to Trello. So that was a great question for me, because I can remind you to please turn on notifications in that group and engage with the posts when they're there. And also, when you find something useful, please let me know. It's really good to know what's actually useful to you. And there's no way for me to track in Trello how many people are opening or using content. So if you can comment on posts, super helpful. For those who are here,
yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, for those who are here who are not in the Global Comms Network, that's because we did invite a number of people today who are not members of the group. We're hoping, please keep yourselves on mute. We are hoping that this would be a great incentive for you to potentially join the group. I know, for example, we have many members from the Arab region today who are not who are not in the group yet, and we really would love to grow your presence there. It's a great way for you to get access to all of these tools and resources we just spoke about. So if you're not yet a member and you're from one of the regions, please reach out to your regional contact for WOSM. And if you are like Mark, for example, and those of you in the World Scout Jamboree team, we can just chat, you and I, afterwards, and I will help you get access.
Very good. Then the next question is from David Lai. How early do you arrange all the materials before posting them online, and how often do you re-evaluate the whole arrangements?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, how early do you arrange all the materials before posting them online, and how often do you re-evaluate these arrangements?
Yeah, unfortunately not that early. I wish I could say that we get to plan things out super early, but as many of you know who are looking to me in order to get assets for things like World Environment Day and that sort of thing, a lot of the time they don't come super early. That's also in part because we're making a huge effort to translate as many assets as we can into the 5 WOSM languages. And as I'm sure you know, we rely on a pool of volunteers to do our translations. They're very busy with the World Scout Conference, and then after that, Joti and so on. So I know it can take some time. And I want to thank those from NSOs who have reached out and helped us. For example, Scouts in Spain who helped us translate the Safe from Harm assets recently, super helpful. And occasionally I know that we have like Portuguese speaking Scouts who will share their Portuguese for other Portuguese assets for other Portuguese speaking NSO. That's really great. But in terms of the timing, it's not consistent at all. When I do have the opportunity, I'll do what I recommended just now. I'll sit down and I'll block 3 hours where I don't get any notifications from anybody, and I'll just focus on scheduling content. And in those cases, I'll usually focus on scheduling content for weekends to make sure that I don't have to stress out on Fridays to schedule content in advance. But I don't have a magic solution for that.
Let's go to the next question, also from Sharif. Is there any news about verifying our social media channels?
Sorry, can you come again?
Sorry, is there any news about verifying our social media channels?
How to refine?
Verifying. Is it my mic or yours? Any news on verifying the social media?
Oh, verifying. No, I did share an update on that in the group recently. Unfortunately, like all of Facebook's customer service in the last year, not that they ever had very strong customer service, even for large channels. Like we have a 650,000 followers on our Facebook page, and we can't speak to somebody directly at Facebook. The only way we can speak to somebody at Facebook is through a consultant who has like a working relationship with Facebook because they work with so many high-paying clients who pay a lot for ads. So it's actually very complicated to reach to Facebook. And we had a contact for a while. They disappeared during COVID when the number of requests went up. So I don't have an update. What I offered is that next month, I'll probably offer either written or maybe via Zoom to have a session with everybody who wants to get verified, and we can just go through the application process together step by step and see how much of it, see what we can do. Because if we do it together and if I know that everybody has followed exactly the steps, then it gives me one more way I can go back to Facebook and say, hey, we definitely followed all the correct steps. These are all the pages that got denied, and hopefully try again.
Yeah, very good. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, perfect. The next question is which WOSM social media network has more engagement?
It's not, we have way more, it's not necessarily going to be like a fair comparison because we have different audiences a little bit. Like our audience on Instagram is a little bit younger. In both cases, for Instagram and Facebook, our audience is majority in like the 20 to 30 age range, I would say. But we do have more younger people on Instagram. So that's important to us as well, to be able to reach to younger scouts directly. And it depends on the content and the post. So for example, something about the king, the king in Sweden does really, really well on our Facebook page, but not so well on our Instagram page. Don't know why. So we can't always explain it, but we just kind of experiment, and it gives us an idea that things that are more newsy do well for us on Facebook, and the engagement is very high there. And things that are more like fun and engagement based do really well on Instagram.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Hamoon. We actually have quite a lot of questions in the chat. So how do you use hashtags in different WOSM social media channels?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I could talk about it for a while, so I'll just try to be really brief because we don't have time. I did share, so in the free tools, there's 2 websites you can use where it allows you to type in a word like scouts, for example, and get suggestions for hashtags that could work well with it. Hashtags are not really important on Facebook. We usually use a couple of branded hashtags like scouts or scouts for SDGs on Facebook, just so that we index those posts, but or we encourage other people to use those hashtags. But they're really important for Instagram if you want people to be able to find you. So it's good to think about what are people looking for or following that might lead them to scouting. So for example, like hashtags related, you could search for hashtags related to hiking if your post shows a photo of people who are hiking. And then that might be a way for people who are looking at different things about hiking on Instagram to come across scouts. What a lovely thing. That's exactly where we want people to find us, right? Our potential audience. So use those tools to sort of do a bit of research. And in your insights, you can actually see how many, if you look at a specific post insights, you can actually see how many people found your post through hashtags. So have a look at that and see, okay, you know what, nobody found my post through hashtags, maybe I'll try different ones next time. You can use up to 30 hashtags in a post on Instagram, which go ahead and use 30 if you can find 30, but please keep them at the bottom of your caption, not at the top. You still need a caption first, not hashtags first. So don't crowd it with hashtags. It just doesn't look nice or professional. Or you can put them in a comment as well. I hope that helps. That's my quick hashtags talk.
Perfect. Thank you. We should not forget as well that we have interpretation. So I know that you're trying to be as fast as possible. There is another very good question. If a National Scout organization has an amazing story they want to share on WOSM channels, what should they do to get it featured?
Great question, actually. Such a great question. Thank you for that. So NSOs who want their content featured on our channels, you'll need a few things. One, I almost always reply to people who ask this and ask them if they've already shared it on scout.org. And if the answer is no, I will say, could you please share it on scout.org and then share with me that article? So that's the first thing, to definitely share the scout.org article with me, or with me directly. You have my email address if it's something that you think is really, really important or that should be featured. But I will definitely only share it if you have high quality photos or videos, unless it's a really exceptional story. In some other way, we might consider lower quality photos, or if it's from a country we don't hear from very much. So we definitely want to feature people all over the world. That said, we make no guarantees in terms of timeline, when we can post things, because we have a very busy content schedule. But we want your stories, and we definitely really want stories from countries we don't hear from as much. So please do share them.
Okay, and for now, I see the next one will be the next question from the chat. So if we missed something, please write them again. So the question is, how do you deal with events, projects, activities, announcements in Instagram that need links to join? So do you use only stories for that or anything else?
Great questions, everyone. So links are challenging on Instagram. Even for those of you who are using stories, you don't have a swipe up option unless you have 10,000 followers, which for most NSOs is not the case at this point, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with having less than 10,000 followers. This is just a rule from Instagram. There is one cheat to that, which is you can swipe up on an IGTV. So that's one way you could sort of cheat, is by including a link on an IGTV post, and then people can actually click it or swipe up on it in a story. But the main thing is to send people to the link in your bio. The other thing you can do is work with your web developers to make sure that your links are as simple as possible. For example, earthtribe.scout.org is one that I still include in my descriptions because it's simple. A lot of people will remember that and will visit it. But I'll say, see link in bio or go to earthtribe.scout.org. If it's not the case, don't include long links in your descriptions, because nobody can copy paste them or reach them that way. So instead, direct them to the link in your bio. And unfortunately, you have to stay on top of that and make sure the correct link is in your bio. We do use something called Linktree in our bio on Instagram, which is a way to keep a few different links there at the same time. So you can explore something like that. I'm sure there are paid versions. So there are free versions. We use a paid version. So you can explore that. That way you don't have to constantly keep changing that link in your bio. You can just update that.
Thank you. And there's one more question which popped up from Sharif. Is it ethical or even useful to promote scouting content using paid ads to the world using targeted marketing?
Yeah. Yes. I personally don't think it is unethical. I know that there are different views on using ads, but I think that the ethical issues come when people are using ads for malicious intent and purposes, which of course we are not doing. We do use paid ads usually around events or major launches in order to try to get more people to see that content who might be interested. And there's a number of keywords that you could use to help get the right people to see your posts, whether that's like scouts, youth organizations, and also all of the outdoors keywords. And we could definitely do a whole session just about how to run paid ads, because it's not an easy thing to learn. We often work with consultants to do that because it's too time consuming to add on top of my job. But there are some simple things you can do for very little money, like $20 a month could get you a lot. So it could be worth exploring.
Thank you. And I'm not sure about this one. There's one more. Is it a good idea to publish one subject for a day by using different platform cross-posting?
I'm not exactly sure if I understand the question, but Frank, do you want to clarify? You can just turn on your mic. Frank?
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, my question is about, is it possible to publish one subject for a day by using different platform? For example, using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for one subject.
Ah, I see. Yeah, like you're saying, you're asking if it's okay to post the same thing on different channels.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, good question. We do it quite frequently because, again, of resources. Ideal world, each of your channels would be used for something different, but also different people use different channels. Again, if you think about yourself and the way you use social media, me personally, and maybe it's because I spend so much time on social media for work, I don't use all of those platforms outside of work very often. Like I never use Twitter for my personal life, and I very rarely go on Facebook in my personal life, but I'm on them all the time for work. But I think it's the same for a lot of people. I think that you kind of have your favorite platform that you go to more often. For me, that's Instagram, and you focus there. So I wouldn't, like me personally, I'm not that stressed about it because I don't think that the same person is going to see it necessarily on Facebook or Instagram and Twitter. And if it's a message that I want people to see a lot, that's also okay. Like have no problem if somebody sees a safe from harm message on Twitter and then goes on Facebook and sees a safe from harm message. I think that's great. They're really going to understand that this is very important to us at WOSM. You can though, make sure that you're adapting posts for different channels by adapting the graphics, for example, to make sure that they fit. For example, ideally you're using vertical videos on Instagram or Square, but an easier way to do that is to mostly use Square for most things because it'll look good on mobile on most platforms. But just keep in mind things like that, or like I did see a lot of NSOs that were posting graphics that were more like poster style, and when they go on Instagram, they don't really fit well. They don't look that nice on the grid. So just consider things like that you can adapt. But no problem, post the same thing on different channels. It's okay. Any other questions? Sorry, I do realize I spoke quite quickly answering questions. I was feeling pressed for time. I really hope everyone who's listening to interpretation managed to follow everything. So thank you very much to our two to our two interpreters today in Arabic. That was really kind of you to join us. And again, big welcome to the World Scout Jamboree team. I hope to see you again at some more events in the future, and we'll add you into some of you into the Facebook group as well, so you can benefit from some of the messaging there. And on the other hand, I'm sure the Global Comms Network will hear soon from the World Scout Jamboree team about how you can promote some of the exciting things coming up for the Jamboree. And yeah, I hope, honestly, the foster puppy has been completely tearing up my apartment this entire time. So I hope I didn't look too distracted. But I have to go clean up now. So that'll be fun, but she'll just say hello, looking like she didn't do anything wrong. This is Ella. All right, thank you all for your amazing questions. And I know a couple of you asked if we could email you the resources. We will not email them to you because we are putting them in the Facebook group, and that's what it's there for. So rather than me having to send it to specific people, you can all find it there afterwards. Okay, thank you so much. That was a really fun session. Have a great evening.